Happy Friday, Miami. This is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami, a real estate podcast where locals discuss what's going on locally. We're going to cut through it. We're going to give you straight talk. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm also the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. I am here with my co-host, Daniel Hernandez, who is a real estate professional over at Compass Real Estate in Coconut Grove. He does condos and single-family houses. He's also the moderator. Here's the baton, Daniel. Let's run.
Moderator? It sounds so official, Peter. You're going to make me blush. In any event, everybody, welcome to Buy, Sell, Hold. Peter so wonderfully said. Peter Zalewski, Daniel Hernandez. Now, what we do, if you're joining us for the first time, and sorry we're a little late, but we like to do this on what Peter calls Miami time. He's really, really leaned in. He's acculturated now. He's been here for what, 30 years? More.
32.
Peter's more Miami than 90% of the people out here. You heard it here first. So if you're joining us for the first time, what we do, and you'll see in the bottom left of your screen, it's what we call the rundown. And yeah, we have some silly little titles, but these are really, really serious topics. Well, they're not always serious, but usually they are. And we look through everything with the lens of Miami real estate. So you got about 7 minutes with each topic. We got you for an hour. So if we go a little bit over on each topic, and we normally do, we have time. But after each topic, we either buy, we agree, we sell, bullshit, or we hold because we don't have enough information, and that's okay. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, but we always try to have a little bit of fun, and hopefully at the end of this, you learn something that you can go throw down a few beers, go to an icebreaker happy hour, and say something smart, right? I usually do when I learn something from Peter. But in any event,
or trigger somebody because we're going to say something that isn't necessarily approved by the real estate industry figureheads.
And you're going to hear about that today. But jumping into it, and some things that we do mention are kind of spicy, kind of racy. So we oftentimes, when we can, we cite our primary sources because it was written here first. Well, I'm not pointing at Peter. I don't mean to point at Peter, but it was written here on the internets, on the intrawebs, right? So with that, de-stress downtown. And there's a building, and I'm going to pull it up so everybody can see on the shared screen, but it was going to be called the Regalia. And this is even before the branded condo craze. So Regalia was probably spent tens of thousands of dollars at some no-name marketing agency for them to come up with this name, Regalia. It's a gentleman who, well, his name is Gilberto Boeni. I'm not pronouncing his name right. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing his name right. But that development partnership, that had something to do with the World Trade Centers, if that serves me correct, right? And then he also had a hand in 1000 Museum. A lot of people had their hand in that, but he also had his hand in that. He acquired this site over a decade ago. I mean, the news articles we're looking at coming out of the Real Deal and Miami News Today are dated back in 2014 talking about this site. Right now, it's a Holiday Inn, just as much as Biscayne Boulevard was. You had gas stations, motels, crummy hotels, and those have all been knocked down. You got the Waldorf Astoria going, huh?
Don't forget the Greyhound bus stop where everyone used to come in, they'd come out. They'd have their panhandle
surface
in
parking
hand,
lots.
they would go. Yep.
Right. So we have all of these sites that are being redeveloped and revamped, and there's this Holiday Inn. Now, the developer in question has defaulted on his loans, and his one big creditor, I guess they told him he has to put it up for sale. And so it did go up for sale. They were asking, I think, $175 million for it. Didn't seem to pencil for anybody. And so now, starting December 3rd, it's going to hit auction with a reserve price of that big creditor's $101 million note. So if you got $101 million, or you got $102 million, or $101.5, hey, maybe you can get a deal on the bay. Bet it almost as good as a deal as the Trump Foundation, because they got it for a goose egg, or at least they're trying to. What do you think about that, Peter?
I think this story, as well as the Trump Library, which is set to go up a few blocks to the north, this sort of encapsulates where we were and where we're going. And what I mean by that is this developer with the World Holiday Inn site, he's actually the guy who owns the World Trade Center, Sao Paulo in Brazil. Back
Oh,
in the day, we were all about free trade. There was something called the Free Trade Area of the Americas. It followed NAFTA. Remember, NAFTA went in place in the early 1990s under Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton used to play down here a lot because his wife's family had a big presence down here in Miami, and they actually held something over at Vizcaya in Coconut Grove. So the whole big thing was we were going to eliminate trade barriers, and you were going to be able to trade from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego down in Argentina, and there would be no trade barriers, and we would create this fantastic thing. And as part of this group called the FTAA, Free Trade Area of the Americas, they needed a place to put the headquarters. So Miami was competing with Panama City as to where the headquarters was going to be. Then the early 2000s, there's this pushback by I don't know, anarchists. I think the predecessors to Antifa. So there was this pushback, and there was a ministerial event here held in Miami. There was a protest. The police are out here. It's all kinds of things. So that's where we used to be. And then Hugo Chavez gets elected president in Venezuela. Once he does, he starts shifting to the left. Then you get this divide where Brazil and Venezuela. How do I know this? I was writing about it. So Brazil and Venezuela, they go the other way. Florida doesn't want to basically lift tariffs and protections on sugar, big sugar, with the fanhools up in and around Palm Beach County. So the U.S. digs in. They're not going to go ahead and give up on sugar. Brazil says, well, if we can't bring in sugar, we're out. The whole thing goes sideways. And fast forward to where we are today. This gentleman was going to put up a World Trade Center Miami. It was going to be modeled after what he had in Sao Paulo. So this was supposed to be the epicenter of international trade. Fast forward to today, we now have tariffs put in place under President Donald Trump. Used to be tariffs of 4%. Now they're north of 17%, according to Morgan Stanley. And President Trump is looking to put up a library, a site that we value at $368 million. And he is anti-trade. So you want to talk about 20 years, Miami and the whole area changing. And I think this project is a prime example of, things change and people go sideways. There you go. There's a perfect example of the rendering.
I do. So this render, if memory serves me right, was actually done about 10 years ago. Or couldn't that have been in recent? Did it have to be 10 years ago? Because they even have the Waldorf Astoria in there. Waldorf, the current renderings don't look like that. Nobody really pulls their yacht up to the AAA, except when they were doing those MTV Video Music Awards, like a few times when Diddy was here more frequently.
Well, I will tell you, Daniel, when the Miami Heat played the Dallas Mavericks, the first time the Heat won a NBA championship, Mark Cuban owned it, and Mark Cuban brought his yacht in, was able to dock it right there and go into the stadium. And I'll never forget, back then, the line was, the only Cuban that's not welcome in Miami is Mark Cuban.
You just love pushing people's buttons, don't you, Peter?
Me? Never.
No, never. But it's interesting. You look at a lot of these buildings here. So you got, I would gather to say that this is probably a 10-year-old rendering, right? So you have Biscayne here, you have 50 Biscayne here, you have the Intercon here, and then you don't have any. Is this supposed to be Marina Blue over here to the right?
I think so, yeah.
So
or it might have been a project. Dan Kazi was going to put up something called Paramount Downtown. He ended up losing the site, and he subsequently put up Paramount Miami World Center.
So, but he used to supposed to put up a lot of things. What? Sorry. So back to distress downtown, and I want to bring it up because not about Trump, but more and so as $170 million for that, right? It doesn't seem like an awful deal if you're able to sell units. So what's the development timeline once you acquire? You got to get the zoning and the permits and the plans. But this, by the way, was already permitted. Like they had everything approved by the city. So this tells me that this was largely a money problem, a penciling economics problem. And if they just needed 175, say they probably would have let it go for 140. Shit, they might let it go for 105. So why isn't this penciling, Peter? Do you think it's because there's too much inventory coming online in downtown in that district? I mean, I'm thinking doomsday scenario. What are your thoughts?
Well, just kind of right off the bat, this pivot away from free trade in Miami, ultimately being the gateway to Latin America. That's like that's what we market ourselves as, the gateway to Latin America. You can get between South America, the Caribbean, and the United States. You all come through Miami. And now with the move that we're doing right now, shifting away and more protectionism, if you will, America first and build it here, that obviously sends out messages. Then you got to look at the political situation that was going on in Brazil. Remember, Brazil had somebody who what's his name, not Barbosa, a Brazilian leader who basically was kind of a Donald Trump protege, if you will. The government in Brazil was going one way. Then all of a sudden there was an election. He lost. They stormed the parliament in Brazil. That gentleman then fled. He was living up in Orlando. He's now gone back, faced trial. He's been convicted. Because he's been convicted and he's a protege of President Trump. President Trump has put 50% tariffs on Brazil until they released him from prison. They said it was a corrupt trial. So you got a bunch of different things. And I would say at this moment, Brazil and the United States, they're not necessarily on friendly terms because they have a leftist leader, some would say, in Brazil, and we have a hardcore right leader in the United States. And those two always get into a pissing match about who's got more power, going back to the free trade area of the Americas. So how that all plays out. And then you factor in, the players have changed. PMG, when this first project was first announced, PMG, who's the one who put up the 11 projects. They're the ones who put up the Elser. They're the ones who doing the Waldorf. They were non-existent back then. If so, they were just getting started, and they were doing stuff over in, Sunny Isles and places like that. So the players have changed. The numbers have changed. And I'm sure that, Mr. Bomeni, old man Bomeni, he's probably long in the tooth right now. And do people still have the same desire to go forward and do that? We saw what happened at Swire Properties. Swire Properties built under Steve Owen, who had this vision. He put a Brickell City Center. He did most of Brickell Key. And then the new guy takes over, and the new guy's like, let's liquidate. Let's dump everything and let's concentrate. So it could have been something going on in Brazil internally with the company, or it could have just been the political changes that have occurred over the course of the last 10 to 15 years.
Bolsonaro, that's the guy's name.
Bolsonaro, yeah, the former leader
Jair
of
Bolsonaro.
Brazil.
Yeah,
that's right.
Every once in a while, only in Date or one of these tabloids, they'll take a picture of him standing in line at Publix like a normal guy.
But he's back in Brazil now. He went back to face
he's back
trial.
in Brazil now.
Yeah, and he got convicted. And once he was convicted, then President Trump pushed back and hit him with 50% tariffs. That's why your coffee has gone up tremendously, because a lot of coffee out of Brazil is filler that they blend in with the better quality stuff. So that's why coffee prices are so high, because of the import. At least that's what I've read, and that's what I've heard, and that's what I see at the grocery store.
So this is a lot for anybody watching on the big screen. If you're just listening in, I pulled up the property appraiser lot for 340 Biscayne Boulevard. It's roughly an acre right there across the street from Bayside. So if you know anybody with deep pockets, or you're trying to raise equity and you want to make a little commission, this could be a good deal. I mean, however, Peter's always
what happens is, well, when a market goes sideways, which is my call, I'm very bullish because I think prices are coming down. So when a market goes sideways, what I've seen in the past, these development sites, they go down in value. Can't do anything with them.
You can't do anything.
What are you
with
doing?
Them,
The
dirt's just expensive. It's
Yeah,
expensive.
I mean, Wynwood Yard. If people remember Wynwood Yard, these guys had a piece of dirt. They didn't know what the hell to do with it, so they brought in some food trucks. They set up a stage. They got permits to put in beer and wine, and next thing you know, they were able to do something with it until they could dump it. So that's
Paddle
always
courts.
The risk. Yeah, paddle course. There you go, Carlos Rosso in Midtown.
Right. So wait, are you a buy, sell, or hold on distressed downtown?
I would be a buy at the right price. I'm extremely bullish right now because my base case is prices are coming down. So I'm very bullish.
I am bullish too. You hear that, everybody? We got two bulls on Buy, Sell, Hold Miami this Friday, November 14th, episode number 26. We have officially been at this for 6 months, Peter. Buy. We're getting into the winter season. So there's something that is, well, the rundown says it all, silly going up on in Tallahassee.